Hi there, and welcome back to the channel. So I was able to get a drum take. It stopped raining again, but for whatever reason I was able to get like 3.5 minutes time together where I didn't hear the rain hitting the roof, and I was able to record the take. And I think it's okay. I realized as I was playing the drum part, because that 1 and 3 snare thing, it was like tap, tap. It's like tap, tap, and it wasn't hard to do, but it was hard for me to do if you're going from a 2 and a 4 to a 1 and a 3, or a 1 and a 3 to a 2 and a 4 on the snare. That was the only little tricky part, and that was tricky enough to keep me distracted. And then when I got good at that, I realized, oh, this part really is simple. But every time I tried to add something to the part, it sounded cluttered. Like, when I was playing along, anything that I added besides what I actually did on the part always would feel like it was a reach, like it was just trying to add things in that didn't really need to be there. And it just didn't sound good for whatever reason. It just sounded better to just stay on beat. So that's what I did. And I'm just glad I got through it, and the tonal quality of the tracks is good. It was recorded hot enough. That's really the most important thing with drums. If you don't record it hot enough and there's too much noise in the room, your signal to noise ratio is not great. You just record more sound and noise than actual signal. So signal to noise ratio is quite good, and it was a little hot, but I was able to just roll it off a little bit, and there's no audible distortion that's distracting or anything like that. I'm sure it's distorted. Pretty much everything you record in rock and roll is distorted, because we record at pretty high levels when we're recording this kind of music, and it's usually cranked all the way up. Alright, so let's just see, and I have several videos where I go through the process of showing how I clean up tracks. And all I really do now, it's very simple, and if you want to go watch one, I got lazy tonight and did not do that part of it. I just quickly did it after I did the take, and then I want to do a playback video just to confirm that everything is okay as far as the way it sounds. But what I do is I've recorded the first 4 tracks here, the first 4 channels were recorded with the drums. I always, use these first 4 channels. Then when I'm done, I connect the proprietary USB cable from the Zoom to my MacBook. I have 2 MacBooks, my good one at home and just junk when I leave here, in order to do this exact thing, because it doesn't take much computing power to do it. You don't have to have a super new, updated computer with the ultimate in, music software on it. I use Audacity, which is a free program, and I think this is like 3 or 4 versions expired. And and I have a program on my computer called Radio Silence, which keeps programs like that from communicating back to the maker, because a lot of times the developers will put tracking software and stuff on these things so they can pull things probably just to sell to people. But I still find it annoying, so I put Radio Silence on there so that program cannot communicate back to anyone what's going on with my computer. So that's a little caveat to keep in mind with Audacity. So I come out of the computer and I drag the tracks. I'll figure out what the names of them are, and it's like mono 00, mono 001, mono 002, mono 003, because there's 4 tracks. And then I'll pull them onto the desktop or just go straight into Audacity. And I used to do some noise reduction. I don't do that anymore because it would leave a taint of a sound on the track that I could not stand. So I stopped doing noise reduction. I do a high pass filter, and I usually cut it at like 20. You could cut it at 40, but I like to leave it a little bit more on there just to get the deeper bass, and just to make sure I'm not just killing any kind of energy that could be interesting there. What else? That's pretty much it. And then let's say that the track is a little anemic, I might boost it 3 dB. If it's right at the edge, or maybe there's a couple spots where it goes over, I may reduce it 3 dB on the amplify. So basically amplify, classic filters. So that's a high pass and they amplify to either up at 3 dB or down at 3 dB. And then I output it at 16-bit because the Zoom can't do 24-bit. And I mean, it can sometimes, but there's a lot of caveats involved, so it's easier to just say stay 16-bit. So it saves 16-bit Microsoft PCM, not Apple, because it won't work if you know, even though you're using an Apple, you got to save it as a WAV file, Microsoft format, to work in here, because this won't understand anything Apple. It doesn't understand anything 24-bit, only 16-bit input from the computer. So once I do my thing on my 4 tracks, I rename them. I'll say snare 1 or snare 1, left overhead left, left overhead right, and then I double them. So like there's 2 snares. You'll put the snare on the desktop, rename it snare 1, snare 2, and then drag snare 1 in, then rename it snare 2, drag that in. Then go to the left overhead, drag it in, then rename it left overhead right, drag that in. Right overhead, drag it in, then rename the file right overhead right, drag that in, then bass drum 1, drag it in, rename it bass drum 2, drag it in. So the idea is that I had recorded 4 drum tracks, but on 17 through 24, which is your 3rd row of your tracks, I'm going to have 2 snares in 1 and 2, left overhead in 3 and 4, right overhead in 5 and 6, bass drum in 7 and 8. So it doubles the tracks, and I think it's essential to give this really slant. I used to just use the 4 tracks, and it was okay. And then one day I tried this. I read somewhere on the Zoom forum, this is like 4 or 5 years ago, somebody was like, hey, you know, I double everything as far as drums, and you know, I double it. And I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. You got 24 freaking tracks. There's no shortage of tracks here. I usually only record like 12 to 16 at the most. Never even 16. It's usually like 12 tracks where I record at the most. So I have, you know, 12 more tracks to play with. Might as well double up and get a more robust, dynamic presentation with a little more gusto instead of like kind of like a, you know, anemic delivery. Okay, so that was enough talking without showing anything. That wasn't that effective. But let me just play it back and see if the take, you know, worked as well as I think it did. Hopefully it did. I'm going to put the phones on just so I can hear what it sounds like in here, and I'll make some adjustments as we go. I always leave the recording going for an inordinate amount of time at the end in order to make sure that the same cymbals ring out. You get every last bit of the energy in the room. So I'm going to consider that a worthy take. The one thing I forgot to mention in the video before when I was recording the drums, and in this video also, is that in the original recording, oh shoot, I bet I left that on too. I left the stupid, that's why it sounded, that's okay. It was just on the first 2 tracks. I used Big Shape to just beef up and compress that snare drum a little bit, give it a little more. I find that that preset, that preamp setting to be, it's like lively. It's very compressed and the gain is pushed up on it and the level's high, and you got to be careful because you can distort in that one, but I think it gave it some good energy. And I forgot to mention that typically, and whenever you engage an effect, you got to make sure you know what you're doing. So you go to effect and it's on dual mic, and it's number 26 Big Shape. Below the patch it says input SRC, input screen. I mean input where the channels go, and it says input 1 and 2. And if you had it in 3 and 4 and you were inputted into 1 and 2 or 1, you wouldn't get an effect. And you can also branch that out and make it work on all the channels. But I had this on certain ones. I don't think Big Shape does that. But like on the mastering effects, you can make it master and affect all 24 channels, as opposed to just, you have to just know what you're doing here on this input SRC and make sure, like, I'm turning it and it's going all the way up to master. So you can use all of the tracks with that dual mic. If I wanted to master this in this, I could. I obviously don't. If I were to master it, I would use, I would just go to the mastering effect, and I should have played it back like that. It would have sounded better. In fact, let's just see real quick. I'll go to master, put it on. Okay, so let me just play it back while I do this and watch the difference. Hopefully you'll be able to tell. Too much bass right now. Okay, so what I did is I went to the mastering effect. Okay, so let's go to that. Exit. You go to the insert effect, and you'll see the algorithm for mastering. Then we're going to go to number 00 plus, and then on the input SRC you'll see master. Now you hit the edit button. Go down to edit. Now, the crossover low is at 50, crossover high is at 50. Sense high, have it 5, mid 5, low 5. Now sometimes I'll go 202 a lot of times, or just adjust accordingly, but here I just went triple 5s for the video. All of it's on 5. Now I go to the next screen. I always take the normalizer to 0. I don't need extra gain coming from the machine. That sounds grainy to me and pushed. The 3-band EQ 555, level 62. Dimension reso, the resonant dimension effect, no thanks. That's off. Patch level 24, and all noise reduction ZNR off. And that's how I master. And then make sure that when you do all that, set it up, you pull your fader down before you hit play, or you're gonna, blow your headphones off. Okay. So now I have a working drum track, or drum tracks, and I put it on 1724, and 17 through 24 are the drums. 2 snares, this left overhead microphone, 2 of those, right overhead, 2 of those, and 2 bass drum tracks. And it's really just 4 tracks, double. Each one is doubled. And you could do panning. So if I go to the pan and go back to 17, I'm going to leave that, the snare down the middle, the next snare down the middle, but this left overhead, I can pan that a little to, let's say, 40, right, 40, and I could have recorded it like this as well. I just left it down the middle because this drum part, I didn't use the whole kit. I just used the left side of it. So there wasn't a lot of information over here besides, the mic pointing at the bass drum. All right, so center here on the right overhead, I'm going to go left 40, right 40. And then finally bass drum center, bass drum center. Reverb, I used to do 30-30 on reverb and chorus, and on my last record, after a while I started hearing extra reverb that I just couldn't abide. So now no reverb, no chorus, unless, I don't know, I wouldn't say never, but right now I don't feel like I need it. I feel like there's enough natural reverb in the tone of the drum recording that was in the rim. The actual adding reverb puts too much phony kind of sound on it that I just don't think is helping. But your mileage may vary on that. The chorus is very subtle. It gives like a little doubled feeling. So if you need a little more air, like something feels a little lifeless, the chorus might pick it up. But I'm telling you, your recordings, your raw recordings, the actual, tracks that you record, those have to be good. There's not much you can do with effects later. If they don't sound good and you're having to rely on things like chorus and reverb to try to get some life in there, it's almost always better to just go ahead and re-record it, because if the signal isn't strong and powerful like the ones we're getting here, the drums will sound anemic and you'll keep trying to do things to them and it just won't ever get better. So I try to make, as you can see, none of this is perfect or anything, but I try the best I can to get the songs to work at the drum level, make that sound good before there's any reason to move on. Okay, so now I have a working drum track. I still have the 2 quick stick clicks that I recorded. So now it's just get on that guitar. I want to get that done quickly, get the bass done, get it sung, and be done with this thing. I really want to finish it rapidly, because when I feel like one of these is moving quickly, I just want to stay on it and not, get behind and start going slow again. The next song is not complete. I've got this really cool riff that I was able to conjure up after doing a lot of Texas Blues Alley work, looking at the stuff Anthony put together regarding Jimi Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Johnny Winter, that kind of thing, and learning those riffs. And man, there's some of those are so amazing. They're so dark and gnarly. And I had one that I'm working on, and I've got like 3 riffs, and I'm trying to tie it all together. Plus, I don't want to rush the melody. With these new weird songs I'm writing, I used to like try to, as quickly as I could, to get the music and the melody to bond fast, like within just 30 seconds, like the song had to be done. And with these songs, I'm finding that I'll start them up like it'll be riff based more, and it'll start developing slowly over time, and then a vocal melody starts to emerge, and it's slow. Like I haven't even rushed this song. I don't even want to try to rush it. I don't want to set something in stone that's inferior, that it would have been better if I just waited a minute on the vocal melody. So I'm just slowly letting it develop in my mind, continuing to work on it in an instrumental way and thinking about what I'm going to put there, and every once in a while vocalizing it a little bit, but it's weird. So once that one gets done, I'm going to start on that one immediately, because like I said, I don't like the other songs I had planned to record. One of them I don't think is good enough, and there's 3 songs I recorded that I don't even like at all anymore. But I'm kind of rating those songs for ideas, and the energy that I went into with them is good. I just don't really love the completed song. So it was driving me nuts trying to fix it. So I just want to move on, and I feel like I've gotten onto a vibe or a sort of a thematic a theme that I feel makes more sense, and I want to write in that theme and make the whole record follow that trajectory, as opposed to the one I was on that felt a little I don't know, it just felt false. Like the songs just kept coming out in a way that was not pleasing. They just weren't finishing easy. They were so much work and a lot of like fixing and going back, and the vocals were always like troubled. I don't know why. It's like, if it ain't right, it ain't right. All right, so I think I'm on a good track with this tune. Thank you so much for watching, and everybody who offers up wonderful, input, advice, friendship, help, camaraderie, support. I thank you deeply. Next time.